Right at the top of the UK, just off the top of Scotland, there's a group of small islands called the Orkneys, and they are full of history and legends and stories, including this one, which is all about creating beauty from unwanted rubbish and finding God's goodness in the darkest of times. Several of the Orkney Islands are connected by causeways, special roads that link the islands together. They were built during the Second World War to protect British Navy ships that were anchored in the Bay of Scapa Flow. And the men who built them were Italian prisoners, captured by the British and held prisoner on the small Orkney island of Lamholm. They slept in metal huts, ate together in the mess, and had to work hard, blasting rocks from the quarry to build the causeways. Life for the Italian prisoners was hard. The Scottish weather was bleaker and colder than they were used to. They had little freedom. They didn't know when or if they would be able to return and go back to Italy. And they missed their homes and their families. But into this wild, bleakly beautiful, but to them dark and cold place came a ray of light, carried right into the heart of the camp in 1943 by Padre Giacomo. He was an Italian priest who arrived to minister to the men, to help them find God. But he found a camp where hope and light were hard to find. And as he began thinking about how he could help them, an idea formed in his mind. The camp needed a church. Whispers began to fly as the men spread the news of the priest and his project. And one of the men whose ears heard those whispers was Domenico Ciochetti, a professional artist and painter who'd spent his time painting the walls of churches back home in Italy before the war. His artist's heart had been hidden behind a soldier's uniform for too long, and now the news set it free. He began collecting materials, unwanted bits of rubbish that they could use to build a church. In the bay near the camp there were some sunken ships that stuck out of the water at low tide. The men swam out to them, collecting materials, things like iron and wood and stone from the wreckage, and bringing it back with them to shore. The project began in secret, until one morning the camp commandant, the British soldier who was in charge of the prisoners, walked past some of the Italians who were working on a crucifix and some candlesticks with the salvaged iron. The prisoners were expecting to be in trouble, but instead the commandant offered them 2 metal Nissen huts that they were no longer wanted, that they could use for the building. They covered the huts in concrete to protect them from the Scottish rain. And then they built a beautiful concrete frontage to welcome people into the church. One of them even sculpted the face of Jesus from concrete and included it on the front. Inside, they skimmed the walls, and with no tiles or stone to use, they painted them to look like the beautiful stonework that they remembered from the churches back home. The baptismal font was made from an old car exhaust, and the lanterns were made from old recycled bully beef tins, the tin cans they ate their food from. A concrete altar was built at one end of the building, behind an ornate iron screen made by one of the prisoners, Giuseppe Palumbi. He used his metalwork skills to create beautiful twists and curls out of the unwanted iron. The tabernacle that sat on the altar was made from some of the wood that they'd rescued from the shipwreck. And in the middle of all this beauty and artistry and restoration, Domenico Chiocetti put his artist skills to use, transforming the chapel with paintings and frescoes and filling it with colour. He painted angels and vaulted ceilings, vine-wrapped pillars, animals to represent the four Gospels, and a stained glass effect on the windows. But he saved his masterpiece for the wall behind the altar. All through the war, in his pocket, Chiocetti had carried a picture that had been given to him by his mother before he went off to fight. A picture of Mary and the baby Jesus. A copy of a painting called The Madonna and Child by Niccolo Barabino. He had looked at it often. He knew it well. And it was still in his pocket when he arrived on Orkney. Now he took it out and he set about recreating it, painting his own large-scale version on the wall of the Italian chapel. In the painting, Jesus holds an olive branch, a symbol of peace. Angels carry a scroll, inscribed with words which, when we translate them, say, "Queen of Peace, pray for us." The angel on the left holds a shield of the artist's hometown of Moena, a ship passing from the darkness of war into the light of peace. And in a final symbol of peace, the angel on the right is placing a sword back into its sheath. It is a beautiful place. In the midst of that cold, dark, lonely prison camp, against the backdrop of the brutality of war, those Italian prisoners used their skills and creativity to build a beautiful and holy place from salvaged and scavenged and unwanted rubbish. A church whose very existence sings of hope and light and peace. No wonder it became a place where God could be found. Then and even to this day.